Happy April, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pasifika Voices Podcast. Now, last month, we invited distinguished guests to have conversations around PI data, identity, and women chiefs. Didn't catch the episode in real time? Well, make sure you catch the replay this month because this month we're keeping our foot on the gas with more episodes and more content on heritage, grassroots work, and more. But first, question of the day. The state of Pacific Islanders, Polynesian, Tongan, Samoans in America. Are we in despair? In today's April Roundtable, we're going to be talking about this and more with our staff. So make sure you stay tuned to another episode of Pasifika Voices Podcast. All right, everyone, welcome back. I am Tonga Victoria, your host. Again, if you are joining us for the first time, please make sure you are following us either on Facebook or on YouTube, as well as our Instagram channels. If you want to get involved, join the action, volunteer, make sure you log on and check out our website, www.anamatangi.org, for all things Anamatangi. We go live every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this month we have a bunch of content, featured guests that we are going to platform. So please make sure you subscribe because you do not want to miss out. Now today, as we will be doing every month at the beginning, we are going to be conducting a roundtable with our Anamatangi staff, our core executive team, to talk about some of the things that happened last month, because there's a lot of things that happened last month, some of the things that we have coming up ahead in this month of April, which is Stress Awareness Month, Poetry Celebration Month, and then also talking about some of the hot topics, some of the current events that are happening at the grassroots level, all the way to the global level, and we're going to get a plethora of perspectives. And so without further ado, today I have joined with me my executive director, Tiffany Ukila Moilangi Hautau. We also have our public relations director, Michael Laulu Uhila, and then our beautiful community liaison, Cecilia Afungia, where we're just going to talk about things unfiltered around community and heritage and all things more. So please welcome them into the studio. Thank you all for joining us. And as the youngest person in the space, I'm now going to step back and would love to start with Laulu and just do a round robin of who you are, your parents, islands, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, well, first, thank you, Tonga Victoria, for having me here and the rest of the panel. My name is Laulu Uhila. I'm just going to keep it short. We are short for time, but my mother's from the island of Western Samoa, and she was born in Apia. My father's from the Kingdom of Tonga, from Katagamotonga, and his name is Senta Uhila. My mother is Mama D, and I'm glad to be here.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll go next. My name is Tiffany Uhila Moilangi Hautau. My parents are Mama D and Papa Center. Mama D, again, is from Upolu, Savai'i. My dad is from the Kingdom of Tonga, Tatagamotonga. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Tonga Victoria. And thank you all for tuning in.
Hi, hi everyone. My name is Cecilia Afungia, and my married name I'm gonna include Finefeuyaki. And I'm a daughter of Leilua and Ahiahi. My mom is from Nautoka, Eua, and Novaka, and my father is from Tatamotonga, Lapaha, and Homa. And happy to be here residing in East Palo Alto, serving the community Anamatangi Polynesian Voice. And aloha.
Aloha. Thank you, Cecilia. I will introduce myself briefly. My name is Tonga Victoria Whakawaka Ahuamango. I am the third child of Sione Whakala and Patisua Eleanor Helu. My dad comes from Tuanuku, Vava'u, and then my mom, comes from the Helu lineage from Hapai. And I am currently living in Sopu, in Taha, born and raised in EPA, and really excited to be and kind of facilitate the conversation that we're going to have today, because quite frankly, these three minds are the ones that you kind of have to refer to when talking about some of the topics we're going to get into. So first, I guess what I will kind of start the conversation around, or at least frame the conversation around our question of the day. The state of Pacific Islander Polynesians in America, in the diaspora. Are we in a state of despair? And before I open that up for conversation, wanted to contextualize that within the county of San Mateo, within the city of East Palo Alto, that the San Mateo County still reigns as the largest Tongan population within the Bay Area, and then also largely within the continental U.S. And East Palo Alto has been the settling point for immigration, for immigrant families coming from all parts of the Pacific, but specifically Samoa and Tonga, since the 80s. And, we have our resident historian, Laulu, here. I wanted to ask you, Laulu, what is the state of Pacific Islander Polynesians in America? What's the origin of that, kind of looking back at the 80s and the 90s and the work that was happening?
Well, it started from the family. The family is the original origin. Without the family, there's no church. Without the church, that's the community. So if you want to simplify the Tongan and Samoan experience, it just breaks down to their family, their church, and work. And so back in 1972, the church started in Hillsdale, First Tongan Church, First United Methodist. So that was an influx of Pacific Islanders coming into America. So the Tongan diaspora, which was interesting, different from the Samoan. Samoan went to the city, San Francisco. There were some Tongans there. Some of your Afuhamano clan is on that side, and some of the Whanaika tribe is over there. And but actually, it was San Mateo, of all places. That was our go-to. Like, let's go to San Mateo. So people came from San Mateo and straight to that area. And so from the 70s on to the 80s, we had different presidents in the U.S. They went to, Nixon, they went to, Gerald Ford, Carter, then boom, Ronald Reagan. There was this thing called the Talaofa, which is amnesty in English. So the Talaofa is what opened the door for more Tonga people to come to the States. So we had family that came through here. So once again, back to the family, the church. And so the Methodist Church was building. Shas Wesleyana Tawatai no Tonga, or Sound Tata for short, was building as well. But the First United Methodist Church was built because their base was here in the States, and that's why it was built from them. Before LDS, before Katolika, before Ahofitu, Ahovalu, or whatever, all those churches were not established yet until first one was First United Methodist, and it takes, that's an American church. So that build off. So that was the short story. The short answer was the family in the church, and those churches started developing. Then Pentecost, which is Pentecostal or Assembly of God, started picking up steam in 1982 with Solomon V, Tomasi V, Vakataimani. So all of those churches started going, and then our generation, then the 70s, there was kids that were born, and in the 80s, there was kids that were born. And so you continue with that, and the amnesty is still open. While Ronald Reagan was president between 1980, 84 to 88. And so that's how we got here. And so from there, then the population starts growing more and more and more. If you look back at the statistics between 80 and 90. But now I looked at some of the school districts, Pacific Islanders make up like 10% of the population in Ravenswood. And so anyway, I'll stop right there. The short answer is church, family, and church. That's how we build.
Yeah.
Even if you don't go to church, somebody's related to somebody that's in the church. But ain't nobody don't have a family. We all have come from a family. So that's a short answer.
Thank you for that. Tiffany, I wanted to ask, being that you are the executive director of the organization, and growing up in the organization, watching both of your parents really build this institution, or kind of forming into an institution outside of the church. What was that like for you growing up in the home, knowing the importance of church, but then also kind of building this understanding of also the importance of community? What was that like?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. It's been a very trying time, just going through those emotions and looking at um, the future of Anamatangi, and really just tap into all of those great, amazing, and they were super advanced at that time. Working with alongside the churches, alongside the community, like Michael said, it was very hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was very hard to see my parents really putting their lives on the line for a lot of the families that we were helping and helping support. All of this really started off of, of East Palo Alto being the murder capital of the nation in 1992. And so drugs, alcohol, the crack epidemic was really high in East Palo Alto. And, my parents really was striving to advance our family in any way that they can. And heritage and cultural preservation and understanding our identity was paramount for them.
Mm.
um, I tell the story a lot where, Michael and I and all of us grew up fairly different during different times of the years of the struggles that my parents had to go through. But I was one of the ones that spent a lot of my time in the Menlo Park School District. And, there was obviously affluent students. And so my parents really strived to preserve who they were, right? They were performers, uh, really indebted to their culture and their land. And so coming to this just very lost in translation, lost in the system, lost in navigating the system. They really made a point to come to my school and a lot of the other schools, but started with their own children, and 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 grounding our identity. In doing that, they started, a reading program at our school. They came and did song and dance, and really just every week was just like a party for our class. They looked forward for that. These young Balangi students, these young Asian students that never even had this type of experience. So I took a lot of pride in that. This was like third, fourth grade. And so they really didn't do that for the students. Not only for the students, they did that for me. And I really felt proud to be their parents. I mean, their daughter. And just it was a trying time, but they made it work in any type of capacity that they saw they could plug in, right? Heritage preservation and just sharing of the knowledge and exchange of knowledge. I really took pride in that, and then so that all obviously went on through our high school and our adulthood. So yeah, I think to answer your question, there was a lot of challenges through the systems. They too were running from immigration a lot of the times, and so how do we cope with that? How do we deal with that? And I'm sure their stories, um, their war stories, and just what they had to endure uh, really just kind of catapulted this whole organization. And so this organization was founded on their lived experience, and I want people to know that. Are those experiences relevant today? Yes, they are super relevant. Housing, immigration, um, just food scarcity, parenting, just understanding how to parent your child and through the system. Like those are all things that they went through, and so through that, it's been just the fundamentals of our organization at this point. So yeah, I'll
Yeah,
stop.
that's so good, Tiff, and definitely want to touch upon that later in the conversation around some of the issues of the past and how they've evolved really into what we're dealing with now in 2023. But I wanted to go to Cecilia because I know, Cecilia, you have shared many times when you were a student at Woodside High and Mama D would be chasing you around campus. Being someone who was your family, again, one of the earlier or probably one of the early families that came to EPA and settled here, and then going into an institution like Woodside High School, which is still very predominantly white, predominantly elitist, if you will. What was that like seeing a brown Tongan Samoan woman chasing you on campus? Did that at all shape your high school experience?
Um, I think Mama D came in on a time where young kids like me who came from Tonga, born in Tonga, and there
Mm,
was a lot of us that was born in Tonga and came here to America. And I think somehow we try to fit in with the American life and struggle with language and and the freedom that we have here in America with school.
mm,
School in Tonga is very was it's they still have that today, very disciplined. And um I think it, Mama D came in at that time where she had to wear a lot of hat for us young kids that gave a lot of attitude. We adopted gangsters, colors, and even with cultural lifestyle like Samoan, the Tongans against the Samoan, and the Fijian is right here. And going to Woodside, there was a lot of in Woodside there was like they had a section where colors and black and Hispanic on this side, Polynesian on some side of the high school. Um, and I think Mama D had with me with my to be one of the person that gave a lot of hard time to her and to be here with her and Anamatangi and her family and you guys. um I see, and I said to myself, she's an amazing woman, still fighting for young kids today, and she's still going at it. But anyway, I'm tearing here, and and to go into East Palo Alto, we moved into East Palo Alto in 1985. At that time, there was still a lot of drug dealers everywhere standing around the streets, and there were other Tongan family there. Maybe 10 family ahead of us. There were the Filino, Masifilo, and there was the Koloto, Pahulu, and the Latu, the Niwas, and I don't, and the Fasolo, and the Ross family. Um, but everybody, I always remember how San Mateo, Tongan San Mateo people look down to East Palo Alto as ghetto little city. But and then all of a sudden later on, after 5 years or 10 years later, they all moved to East Palo Alto. Uh, so and seeing the big change in East Palo Alto now, with our, I think we have a lot of our cultures now in East Palo Alto going on, more than how it was before.
mhm,
Um, and like how Michael says, a lot of the churches, there's, you guys all know that there's a lot of churches in East Palo Alto now. And actually, here at the function of, they just started this new, what is it, Wesleyana Church. I think this is where their headquarter will be.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, here in San Leandro.
Oh,
And
okay.
they purchased this property here, very big. It's my first time here. But and to see how this Bay Area is growing with our people, our Tongan people here,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
amazing. We don't know where, just wondering what would happen if we all stayed in Tonga.
right. No, I mean, you bring up a good point, Cecilia, and I wanted to ask you, Tiff, on what she was mentioning about coming to America and almost either by force because you're now assimilated into a system or by choice, like I want to be this person because this person is outside of who I'm supposed to be in the family or who I'm supposed to be at church. How does Anamatangi, I mean, given the programs that we've done since 1997 to the programs that we're running now, how are the programs shaped in order to address these issues around, at risk, around delinquency, poor retention? How do those things get factored into shaping programs and initiatives? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And the easy answer to that is we are constantly shifting and moving in the with the direction and in centering the community. Our
Mhm.
intention is uh, to take our core values of our work and really engage and really respond to the community and what the needs are. Sometimes it's not addressed and it's not um, it doesn't come to us on a platter from the community, right? It sometimes is led by some of these institutions that we're partners with, right, with the county. Sometimes it's the lack of data that we have to sustain some of our programs, and so much. And Michael and I was talking about this today was um, the difference between our work and the the grassroots level that my parents have really installed into to the way we've been doing it is not moving on the needle from the needle of what funding is given to us. If there's money involved, um, we've really been able to just respond to the community. And so example, right, is just working with alongside youth, right? And youth are a population and targeted audience that is forever changing, right? And so that youth and young adults are my mom's real passion. She's been a juvenile justice commissioner for so many years, and she's made it her life's mission to continue this work. When I received the nonprofit, I just did not see how I can duplicate what she does.
Mm,
But I made it my own, right? And I made it so that we are able to still respond to that need, but taking it more grassroots approach and not waiting for something to happen. And a lot of times our community is uh, reactive and not proactive in terms of prevention. But we've been doing a lot of prevention work, and so um,
yeah,
how can we continue doing that is another question on sustainability, and that's the real reason why we are doing what we're doing. And so this team and this squad and just all of the partners that we've been able to partner with to just listen to us and hear the need, read our proposals, read our thoughts and our intentions in the community, and how can we respond better, is also a always developing component to our organization. Is how can we do better.
yeah, that's really good. And I wanted to ask, and before I ask, I know that this next question we might be treading on sensitive waters here, but Laulu, as the public relations kind of facing to the community and hearing what you hear, and I'm sure oftentimes people don't know that you are affiliated with Anamatangi or that you are the son of our founders. What does the community think? Are they receptive to this? Because I know, being on the squad and being a part of the movement, moving things forward, sometimes the negativity and sometimes that those roadblocks are coming from within our community. What would you say to that?
Oh yeah, there's always a Judas amongst us, if you know. So betrayal is going to happen, even within our own family, and I think part of it is because we're not clear of what we want to do or state the obvious. What's our intention? I've been able to maneuver in and out of Kava clubs, churches, and people be like, "Is that guy part of this church or what?" And I never say anything. You know what I mean? So, a good diplomat is one that can get a yes when they don't even know what the question was. So, being able to maneuver, I've gone to Penyeli, I've gone to Falufanga, I've gone to these churches, and I just pretend like I just play dumb. And sometimes that's the best approach until there's something that's needed. You know how Tongan people are. They're like, gotta get my doggy out. You know what I mean? So there's that dance between, all right, I don't want to kaimumua, but I don't want to be halonga too. So I gotta be like in the middle, right? So somewhere in the middle. And I remember one time I went to Taupulu and there was this guy from Tonga, I won't say his name. He's really mad at my dad. He just didn't want my dad. It was basically just haterade. He was just trying to be the antagonist to block our Anamatangi from going to get to the king. And this is from our own people. It wasn't a Palangi, it wasn't an FBI, it's our own Tonga people. And we had to figure out a way around. So I went there with Tuyono, may he rest in peace. We went another angle, and I went to go see David Tokolo. May he rest in peace too. He passed away. And the guy was so respectful to us. He gave us a big old box of best money and some oranges. And he says, yeah, that's respect. And then we went like this, we dapped. And like maybe a couple weeks later, everything that my mom and dad wanted was part of the vision. But it wasn't just them, it was a whole community. I just want to give props and shout out to everybody that was around at the time between 95 and 97. My auntie Vaiolulu wrote a lot of those songs. There was a guy named Maya Palaibai who wrote songs before Sinta was around. And so reference to people and our ancestors and our tribe, I know I don't want to prolong, but I think it's necessary to acknowledge them. There was a lot of work prior to that. And the haterade is going to be there. That's just part of what happens, It's like in theater, you always have to have conflict. Without the conflict, it's not interesting. And Tongan people always like to fekiki, they call it. Somebody block. Can't go. It's not going to always just be, the door's open, come on in. I haven't experienced that. It hasn't been that, too good to be true situations. So I think, and our own enemies ourselves, our own people. I'll just tell you the truth. It's not the white man. It's not the IRS. It's just our own people are always. We've probably was like not understanding. I don't know if it's taimahino or confused or just deep down lotakovi. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's gonna be a hindrance, and it'll go back. It's not gonna be. You can't just throw stones and live in a glass house and it's not going to come back to me. There's going to be repercussion either way. So just like Anamatangi, we've just been flowing. We become the wind. We go anywhere we want now. We don't have people blocking us because the work is more important than it's not about my ego. It's about what the people need.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lolo, for sharing that. And I just wanted to kind of follow up. I know that both of you are bicultural, bi-ethnic, both Tongan and Samoan. And I would say Tongan is a little bit more democratic than Samoan, especially when you go into ceremonies. You can't just stand up and share your heart, what it is that you think in Samoan ceremonial spaces. What do you think is easier to kind of lead with here in America? Well, not here, but in America, kind of in the spaces that we're navigating as an organization. Do you think that maybe perhaps the Samoan heritage lends itself better to having to deal with nonprofit culture, where, like you said, things can get crazy, and I'm not going to speak too much on it, but the politics and nonprofit culture is very, very real. What, where do you think heritage itself, whether it be Samoan or Tongan, where do you think it lends itself? Um, which heritage lends itself better when navigating these systems built places? And we can start with you, Tiff.
Yeah, that's hard to pinpoint for me, but uh, I would say my mom, Mama D, and her amazing, go getter spirit. Don't take BS, and just there's always going to be a solution. And there, I think I heard something in one of like a either like a Tongan function where they describe the crabs that are coming out of the pot, the crabs that are crawling out of a pot of a boiling water, right? um they said that the pot that's associated as being the Tongans, the crabs are just pulling down each other, right? And the pot for the Samoan crabs are like pushing each other out, right? And so I take that sort of like visual uh that visual as in terms of our work, right? How can we advance each other is always going to be the question, and I'm always going to be the question and the intention.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just my experience of being in Tonga, I can say that.
Right.
My experience of being in Samoa and working with Samoans, they're totally different. It's totally different. And I can't. I think Michael can probably articulate it even better, so I don't offend anybody. But I think it's a collective of and a partnership, right? And that's what nonprofits we thrive on, right? Partnerships, collaborations, especially at a grassroots level when we don't have the capacity. um and taking it to a context of like the village, right? Everyone has their role in the village. The chief has their role. The
Right.
husband has their role. The wife has their role. The children have their role. And so when I take that context and that knowledge into the work that I do, um, I really want to empower all of us who share a role in this work, and in those roles, in the capacities that y'all serve in, because this is we're tapping into our warm hot market, right? These are families that we work with, we we congregate with, we eat with, we're with them all the time. So the parameters of where we are working and the people that we are serving, there's really no difference in between the work and that we do and the impact that we do and the services that we provide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll leave it at that, and I'll kind of riff off of anyone else's thoughts, but it's very different.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you brought up the difference, and really naming that there is a structure within community, and it's not community in the sense of like you get to just I feel like when we think of community, we think of I want to use the word chaos, but if there's like a more positive word for chaos, anarchy, like there's no rules, there's nothing for you, just show up. But actually, it's quite the opposite, and I really appreciate that you contextualize that within your experiences in Tongan, and also especially in Samoa. And I really wanted to just ask this because this has been on top of my heart. Is like when we're coming out of service within the islands and back into places like California or just America in general, and we're dealing with these ideas of independence, we're dealing with these ideas of autonomy, but not using any measurement against how to be autonomous while still practicing and carrying your heritage in a positive way, that loses itself. Where now anyone can speak on anything in matters of culture and heritage, and it will be authority because of your skin or your melanin, your ethnicity, and your culture. Is that something that we're fighting against? Like, I'm just going to be quite frank. I want to put it there on the platform so that we can start having these conversations. Is that something that we have to be clear about? What is our intention when we're building up these programs and all of those things? So yeah, I wanted to bring that to the floor to really riff off
of. I think it's really about being at the table when we think high level, right? And having representation, but the representation has to have the intention for community and has to have that cultural context to you, right? I say that because I had a meeting with some high executives yesterday with Stanford Hospital and some doctors, and they basically were like, well, what's the need? Right? Is there a need? How can we do? Like, they were ready to just like give us all the resources. And I had to take a step back and I'm like, you know what it is? It's really just about me being on this council and being able to have these spaces for me to come one-on-one in these boardrooms and share what our organization is challenged with and what our community is faced with. I.e., the experiences that they're faced with at Stanford Hospital, like patient care, right? Um, I mean, it could be something so low level at that, right? And there's a representation, and I am that representation. And when I go to those spaces, I'm like, why aren't there any other people that look like me, but also represent the actual challenges that we and come to bring those challenges to this table to discuss and share and create some solutions around that. um so yeah, I will stop at there, and I think it just depends on what space it is. There's people that are of Pacifica regions, of Pacifica origins, maybe second, third generation that are working for foundations, right? But have no clue of how to connect us with those resources. There's people that work in spaces like Boys and Girls Club who are of Pacifica region, Pacifica origin. How do they connect with themselves in that organization and their own identity, and then see an organization like Anamatangi who is pushing the narrative around Pacifica preservation, restoration, existence, acknowledgement, and like not make the connection, right?
of.
Because there's
Do
still a need.
you think not making the connection, 'cause you're bringing up such good points here. Do you think that the disconnection is coming from identity crisis or coming from what Laula was talking about, haterade?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, and I think it's just a little bit of experience too.
Mm,
Lack of experience and lack of confidence in yourself, right?
mm,
I've met with some people that want to hire us to do some outreach, and I'm like, you have two Pacific Islander outreach workers. What is the problem? Why are they not
right.
at this meeting? How can we advance their skill levels to reach our community? Right? And that's like the thing I spend a lot of time in meetings. It's like, don't just hire the people because they're brown and they look good on paper. What have they done for the community is
Right.
like the credibility. I think the credibility and the experience and the knowledge and the confidence to say, I can go into Penieli and make an announcement that there's COVID vaccines here today, right?
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I can name off, a few people that we worked with that can't do that. And then we show up, right? We show up and we're like the added, second reinforcement measures, right? Like backup. But it's sad that we're not going to go into the development of that and like how it causes moral injury to
Mm,
all of us in this space.
Yeah.
And then that's when Mama D goes in and starts ripping new ones because, right, we've been doing this work for free, and we've been doing this work for not any acknowledgement at all. We're just doing it because there's a need.
Right.
And the impact is there. So if we were to poll almost every person that follows us on Facebook, Instagram, our YouTube channel, and just in general, just do like a paper grassroots poll of how many people that have been impacted by Anamatangi or Mama D in any sort of way, I mean, the pile is going to be long.
Yeah.
So the question is, Mama D is not duplicatable. Okay. When we're talking systems and we're talking like for profit and corporations, they survive off of creating systems that just run itself. But we're not in the business of like Teslas, right? We're not
Mhm.
building actual tangible products. We are in the business of people. And how do we maintain the relationships with people so that we can still provide and partner and this act of reciprocity.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
word you hearing Tiffany speaking is fe'auauhi. With
Yeah. I'll,
Yeah.
That's the word that is coming up to me. I think I heard it from you, Tiffany, or it was a conversation that we had. If we just stop, because I know that there's a lot of other Tongan organization, nonprofit organization here in the Bay Area, and we were speaking about how can we reach them, and I think a lot of them is so busy with the auauhi
Mm.
among each other. If we could just relax how the Samoan does it, you know, like what we're talking about, it's so easy for me to um, communicate with the Samoan, and you see how they run their organization, and they openly open, to anybody. But with our Tongan organization, that I kind of have feelings and stuff, it's like um, uh, you feel that, and I
mm,
think if we could have that kind of, how can we approach them that way? How
yeah.
can that? I think it's a question
I
that
mean,
we.
is it an assimilation problem? Is it when we're taking things like what Laula was mentioning earlier that start in family and start in the church and taking it into now a Western system? That process of assimilation just messes everything up. Like where can like how do we pinpoint this problem? Based off of the experiences of our own leaderships, and then also speaking organizationally, like where is the difficulty? What how like if we were to name it, what would it be?
I think Dr. Reverend Latu said it best is, the behaviors.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's just a lack of understanding power and leadership and diversity in this country.
That is so good. Speak on that. Speak on that. That's good.
And it's and this is why it's very important that us, as I can't name myself as a cultural practitioner, but as we are diving into that realm of learning about tawataina and whakaongo, that's really the basis. And I really encourage everyone that's listening that is of Tongan descent or even non-Tongans to understand the Tongan systems and why these behaviors have become so normalized in our culture. And it's just yeah, it impacts all of us,
Hmm. Yeah.
from all of those decisions that were made through our ancestors.
It's almost like who holla, just throwing in a monkey wrench all the time is part of our culture now. I can mail my Anamatangi, and then somebody just who holla, right? And then we take it like a step further and a step, and then it's like, wow, now that's over the line. Or if somebody goes, God,
Right.
you know. And so I think that for our Longo, that who holla is right in the middle. I don't know how to say it in English. I just call it a monkey wrench, or somebody just throws something in there. Oh, vale, bet. Yeah, you know. So it's always like there's somebody on the haterade. Not just Tongan, it's every culture, but we're good at it because we know it. That's why you're all laughing, because there's some truth to it. And so there's always somebody that do something like I go say doing it fight with them, like yeah, you know, or somebody goes, hey, God, I work here, we can cover for me, you know. So and then there's the mafana where there's more inclusivity. How we know, guy, you know, and so we go from mafana to huhala from 0 to 60. It's almost like, wait, we just went from one extreme, like bipolar for real. Mm-hmm. Went from the north to the south and no middle. And that's, from my experience with other people, this is what we're good at. We're good at just, and I'm not doing it to generalize, but just to be inclusive, to say, hey, we all do it, you know? I mean, I do it.
I also want to add, you know, my experience of, you know, we grew up in a Tongan church, and as an adult, I've, you know, chosen to visit some of the local Samoan churches. Our pastor, Reverend Siaki, and his wonderful wife of the Full Gospel Church in East Palo Alto. So when I go there, I know I have a place, right? This is not a place for me to just speak when I want to speak after maybe a luncheon, which is different than the Tongan culture and just that mafana, right? And having the obligation to like stand up and like speak because I came and ate, you know, a part of the celebration. You know, that doesn't fly with the Samoans. It's only one person that gets up and that actually speaks for the whole luncheon to say thank you to the hosts. And they don't even stand up. They're just sitting in the corner. And so that's just the level of respect that they have. Nowadays in Tongan churches, I mean, anybody just gets up and starts talking. Anybody want to say something to the pastor and like downgrade him? Okay, like it's very, and I don't know it's inconsistent. The inconsistency of like what you think you're gonna get when you go to a function. And so like nowadays everything has just been assimilated, right? Birthdays, this graduation stuff is like that doesn't even exist in Tonga, right? And we've seen it when we went to Tonga. It was like they were trying to get to that level, but it's like, why? Our very, you know, small indigenous ways are so valuable. It's enough for our families. So that level of just wanting to be, and I'm going to quote it because that's what Dr. Reverend Latu said, is the Tongan people want to be as close to a god, right? And so what does that mean, right? It's like everybody want to be Ho'eki. Everybody want to be close to being a Ho'eki. Like what it like for the Samoans, just there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
You know your place. You know how you're related to the chief of the village, and that's it, right? And
you don't try to play somebody else's role. Your role is what your role is. Whereas we got
I learned something today, and the Balesteni of the Wesiliana did the final closing speech, and there was a gift, a foaki koloai, and a lady made her speech and addressed his wife as Lady Havea. And but then he corrected that in his speech that she's she's not to be called Lady Havea. She's just his wife is Mrs. Havea. Lady Havea is only addressed to the noble's wife, or you know how that is. So I get to learn that, and that to me it takes me back to where we need to be educated.
Yes, that's so good.
You know, even though we're all old and under the our parents and hearing what they teach us and stuff, but sometimes like how we just talk about that we just wants to be more noble, or we want to be more, we think we know more better than what or maybe it's the spirit, or is their spirit wanting to
Mm,
uplift those people up, you know so I don't know. So but it's a good thing, so we learn how to speak and where to say certain things in public, so we don't get lectured like that in public. But it's a good thing for to hear that, and I learned something today from that.
yeah, that's so good. Laul, welcome back to the space. I know you were having
Technical
Lala.
difficulties. Too much
Apologize.
who holla and everything.
Too much for Lala.
That's
I
what
wanted
happened
to,
to me. All right.
right. I wanted to
It's good to know that. I mean, just piggybacking on what we're talking about and our people. I won't say one is better than the other. Samoa is different. Tonga is different. They all have their own
that's
way as they are. And I appreciate the goofiness of Tongan people. I was telling my sister while some Tongan people were eating at the restaurant, I just started laughing. And my sister was like, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "I just laugh how Tongan people are. They just make me laugh. They're just goofy like that, you know." And then my Samoan side is like, part of me wants to be serious, but I'm like, but they're just funny, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. I get a kick out of it, it brings humor to me. And I think that's important too, is to find the humor or the idiosyncrasies in our cultures. That maybe that's what the artists can do, is create skits and things like that, or music out of our own, the truths that are us that we try to conceal, but maybe sharing that. And that's what a lot of what we do. And I think with the system with Tonga, no bills and all that, the commoner really doesn't have, their power just lays in the home, just my fire and my fire now. That's it. Anything after that, if you don't have no better name, Hawaii name, you don't have anything, that's your power is just right there. And so maybe that's where that's the nucleus of it. But no Tongan can't say they don't have a family. They came from somewhere, which is why they're very big on lineage. They'll just pinpoint back to Adam and Eve. They're so into that. Samoans not that much, but the Tongan people, they want to know who you are. They're so into that. They want to know which part of the tribe are you at.
right.
So it's in our DNA. We can't really avoid it. It's always with us wherever we go.
Yeah.
It's like that.
I mean, you bring up really good points about just the lineage and this mindset of coming from a village, coming from the tribe, coming from a family, and then being assimilated into a culture where it's more autonomy, it's more independence. Like that can cause mental health issues. Like, let's just be quite frank. When you're taking something that is so central to now something that is so decentralized, where the child will leave home at 18, or children can be emancipated from their parents as early as 12, 11. These things are perhaps symptoms of what we're dealing with, but I know we can talk about that even more. But I wanted to, Laulu, ask you, as you are on this journey of understanding, kind of enlightenment, I think is the best way that I can say it. Like, how can we, just thinking about this month and the work that we're getting into, how can we set intentions in a way that is appropriate for the work, not just Anamatangi, but just like Pacific Islander, Pasifika organizations. Like, how can we set intentions better for trying to make impact into the community?
I think it's important to know what your abilities are first, where your bandwidth is at, your energy, or talking called the EV, how much your energy is for the day, and check in with yourself first, as far as mental health and stress awareness. It's like, where do you want to take your stress level? I asked one lady, how much will you want to complicate your life? here it is. You can add more to it. So I think maybe asking the questions like, how much am I willing to take today? Because I got a lot on my plate. And there's only 24 hours in the day. I can't do it all. So get back down to ground. And maybe you can only do a little bit, maybe 5% or 2%. But my mother and father, they just went all out all day. But there's repercussion. It started burning out, and then starts coming back to the family, and then it starts affecting the children. And so then some of us start acting out because mom's too busy on Woodside chasing kids, but her own kids, the circle is still, you know what I mean? It's a volatile situation. So I think it's something for us to check in on. What are we willing to do for the day or the next 5 minutes? Just bring it back down to basics. That this work is a lot of work. Anamatangi. I mean, we were just at the school today. I give you an example. Just looking for the kids was work. Had one of 7 classrooms, and no communication. First, I said I heard it was over there. Last week they said it was over here, and that's just how it is. Just pivoting, always making a move, and I don't know. So just be aware of that. It's not rocket science. There's some basics to it. You don't have to do so much, but learn from our elders too, like what they've gone through. So I think it's helpful. I've been to every church from Getsimani to Saudata to Suta, Alufanga, and the structure looks the same to me. Like they ain't done nothing different, really. They haven't done nothing different since the 70s. The structure has been this. Pasifika was over there. We got Misunali over there. Some people over there. Some people want to Kaipa'anga. It's going to be there. It's just like, right? She's laughing like it really happens. It was
Right.
Like, we feed into that. Like we laugh about it. And I'm like, why do I keep helping these monkeys? Anyway, it's just something, I don't know. I'm just leaving it as a question. Take a look at it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I wanted to give our executive director to just, in the spirit of setting intentions for the month, what are our intentions for this month of April? How can people expect us to move the needle forward?
Right. After coming back from Tonga and really just kind of taking a reevaluation of our work here and the diaspora, and then looking at my own personal lived experience, my own experience working in community and building capacity around, this being culturally holistic approach that our organization has done for many, many years. I really want to stay aligned with the community, right? And whatever that is, and communicate that, whatever it is around these many different factors that have affected our community, and how do we bring back, and I met with the a very important cultural practitioner in Hawaii. He is helping the Native Hawaiians there create a curriculum that can be in the Kamehameha schools. And so, the question is for our Pasifika organization serving and impacting the diaspora. How do we get our families back to the islands in that indigenous space? Whether it's Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Hawaii, how do we get them back? It's great to just talk about it and create these programs, but how do we get this and teach it on the land, these sacred lands of either Hawaii, Samoa, Tonga? And so that's like a North Star goal of Anamatangi's is, this exchange program, right? And this exchange of knowledge, this exchange of experience for our communities, our families, even the non-BIPOC communities. How can we accelerate as just all humankind, and taking that ethnic specific right? But using our ethnic specific culture and our cultural preservation to teach and engage and coordinate, and this whole power shifting, this whole power building. um like, right, just using this as a vehicle, right? You don't have to be BIPOC, you don't have to, but this is a different approach that we can use and certainly leverage, for the betterment of all humans. And then I think that's and I said that to the Stanford faculty. They were like, well, what kind of data do you need? I said, all kinds of data that proves what we are doing as an organization, as grassroots organization works. I think that's the main takeaway from our meeting yesterday was, how can we leverage these research students to help and bring them back into the community, bring them into the community, and working alongside grassroots organizations to push the programs, to push the methods of what we're doing. So yeah, we're always going to keep evolving. There's always going to be a need for families to get here, and migrating families, and that navigation process. Um, this community behavioral health, uh, uh, public health, right? There's always going to be families that need our support. So are we going to be along? Are we going to stay afloat that long for families to continue to need us? And that's a question that I've answered for funders, and I know that nonprofits aren't supposed to be around that long. We're supposed to create self sustainability and self sufficiency in the community. Um, so yeah, that's all I have to add. Thank you so much, Tonga Victoria.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tiffany, for really concluding the this episode with those thoughts around what our intentions are, not only for this month but really for the rest of the year, and acknowledging that as a North Star. I want to thank Laulu and Cecilia for joining us again as the first episode of the month, where we're just bringing together the team as we are throughout the rest of the month, running our lanes and getting our tasks and deliverables done, but finding a space where we can bring to the community what it is that we're talking about, in our text messages and our email threads and in the meeting spaces that we have with other folks. And so I wanted to thank you, all three of you, for being in this space, for taking time so that community can get to know Anamatangi a little bit better. And as we prep for what's to come in the rest of the month, if you are watching this in real time or catching the replay, please make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. You can find that information on our website. There's so much to come. We have our flagship programs coming up in the summer, and then also some of our other initiatives that we are hopefully going to get some more volunteers signed up for that. So with that being said, I want to close off this first roundtable episode, and thank you all for joining us, and please stay tuned for what's to come, and you can catch us next week on episode 11, and those details will be out on our socials very soon. With that being said, we will call it a night.
One
Thank
announcement.
you. Yes, go ahead.
If anyone wants to fill out the podcast form.
Yes, if you would like to fill out the podcast form, please make sure you do. We will have the link in our bios. Well, we also sent it out on our newsletter, but we'll have it in our bios. We put it in our story. We want to get people onto our podcast. We want to feature your story, share your experience, platform the conversations. So please make sure that you do sign up, fill out the podcast form, so that you can be on the next episode. Thank you so much for that reminder, Tiff. Any other announcements before we close?
Thank you all.
All right, y'all. With that being said,
Thank you for having me.